Chapter 3, Aestheticism. Corey's hands were covered in ink, his black fountain pen scratching notes and reminders into his skin. He doodled drawings, draped around his fingers, circled around his wrists like bracelets. Sorry I'm late, miss. A soft Irish accent fabricated at the door and Dorian fumbled ungracefully into the classroom, falling into the seat beside Corey. Hey, he greeted quietly. Corey barely acknowledged him, only nodding slightly in recognition. His pen continued its assault on his hand, digging deeper and deeper into his skin. It burnt and stung, but he only carried on, writing lines of nonsense that meant nothing, sketches that resembled nothing. Where were you, Dorian? Miss Savard asked, her arms crossed over her chest expectantly. You're almost 20 minutes late. I'm sorry, I got caught up on the way to school. He apologized. An old man had a fall and I waited with him until an ambulance arrived. It won't happen again, I promise. Corey rolled his eyes and suppressed a scoff as the rest of the class cooed, their hearts melting at their beloved rugby player's actions. Well, that was very nice of you, the English teacher concluded, swiftly moving on with her lesson. Now, I want you guys to pick out all the key quotes for Black imagery from Act 2. Work with your partners. You have 15 minutes. Don't do that. Dorian winced, watching Corey's sharp pen carve into his skin. You're hurting yourself. I know. Corey replied softly. Part of him wanted to press harder, watch crimson droplets of blood surface on his snowy skin, fuse with the pen's ink and dribble onto the table. Black blood. So beautiful it would almost be indescribable. Dorian reached forward and grabbed Corey's pen from him, forcing him to halt his actions. What are you doing? Corey demanded, finally pulling his bright eyes up to meet Dorian's. It was the first time Dorian had properly seen the boy, really seen him. The prominent freckles kissing his light skin, scattered over his nose. The shallow dimples indented in his cheeks, visible even without the presence of a smile. His jawline, sharp but soft, and his defined cheekbones shaping the structure of his pretty face. He was feminine but boyish at the same time, and undoubtedly attractive. Dorian immediately felt guilty. He didn't know the kid. What right did he have to snatch his pen away like that? Sorry. He handed it back to Corey. The boy accepted the pen and placed it back on the table, picking up his copy of the Shakespeare play they were studying and flicking to the second act. He skim-read the dialogue, underlining any quotes related to Black imagery. He was so fast, so efficient, so smart. Dorian just watched him work in silence for a few moments before opening his own book. So, did you have a good weekend? He tried to make small talk, tried to get Corey to say something, anything. Even just to hear the sound of his voice, the way he shaped his words and moved his lips. Dorian had always found that the best way to figure someone out was to observe the way they spoke. Confident, reserved, loud, quiet, if they used swear words, slang, abbreviations. Whatever it was, it summed them up. So much about someone could be deduced from the way they talked. It was okay. He replied simply, not looking up from his work. Did you do much? Dorian pushed. Not really. While Dorian was struggling to scratch the surface of Corey's complex personality, Corey already had him all figured out. Dorian wanted to be liked, to be loved. He wanted to know what everyone was thinking so he wasn't susceptible to being damaged in the future. He couldn't stand not knowing what was going on in someone else's head, but more importantly, he couldn't stand the idea that someone might not like him. So, you write poetry, huh? Corey shrugged. Yeah, sometimes. We read some of them in class last year. You must have been in another set. The teacher said it was from an. Chapter 4, No One Likes Me. These would look cute on you. Corey spared a disdainful glance at the pair of jeans Velvet was currently examining in great detail. He wouldn't be surprised if the next thing she did was get out a magnifying glass to inspect them further. Not really. He replied blandly. At least try them, Ona. No thanks. Can we just go? The music blasting from the speakers was grating and the posters pinned up on the walls made him anxious. They were all half-naked teenagers wearing pretty clothes and pretending to laugh. He hated shopping and he just wanted to leave. Velvet put the jeans back reluctantly and looped her arm around his, dragging him out of the store. Where next? What about that cute new shop that just opened up? Velvet. Corey groaned. Do we have to? Hun, you wear the same jumper every day. She reminded him. So? I just want to get you some new clothes to look smoking hot in. No outfit is gonna do that. They're not magical, you know? She rolled her bright starry eyes and nudged him gently. She looked beautiful today, like she always did. Her thick chestnut curls were woven into two loose plaits cascading down her back, her plain silver earrings glinting in the bright lights of the shopping center, and her lips glistening with clear gloss she'd applied in a public toilet cubicle. Fine. I need a new mascara. Come to Boots with me? Sometimes Corey felt bad about the way he talked to Velvet. She was his best friend, his only friend. He wanted to be able to hug her, laugh with her, tell her how much he loved and appreciated her. But he couldn't. It was as if he was emotionally disabled. All those things were past his capabilities. He'd lost the strength to smile a long time ago, and he couldn't remember the last time he'd voluntarily hugged someone. He blamed his medication, his mood swings, his fucked up hormones. He blamed his past, his trauma, his scars. He blamed everything and everyone but himself. And that alone was pretty fucking stupid. Luckily, Velvet didn't take long in Boots. She just picked up her mascara and headed to the counter. You pay £20 for mascara? Corey asked dryly as they left the store. You wouldn't understand. Cor, you don't wear makeup. Not at that price. He snorted. She laughed, slipping her arm around his waist protectively. Corey's height was slightly below average, so there was only a few inches between him and Velvet, which he didn't mind all that much. It made crying on her shoulder after panic attacks just that little bit easier. Shit, don't look now, but it's Velvet Conley. Ty murmured to Dorian, his palms beginning to sweat, his lower lip catching between his teeth in agitation. She was looking in a shop window with her best friend, while Ty observed from afar. What? Where? I said don't look now, Ty hissed, grabbing onto Dorian's sleeve frantically. Fucking hell, just go and talk to her. Dorian laughed heartily. You've been crushing on her since year 7. I can't. She's with that kid. What's he called? You know, the gay one who's horny for poetry. Corey? Dorian couldn't resist anymore and spun around. It was indeed Velvet and Corey, gazing into a shop window. They were too far away to really tell, but it appeared as though she was explaining something to him in great depth, pointing to a pair of leather boots stood proudly before them. Fucking hell, I said not to look, Ty exclaimed, tugging Dorian back around to face them. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go over there all like a man and ask her to No. You can't. What? Why? You literally just told me to Because she's with Corey Winters, you dipshit. He explained urgently. So? I thought you guys were friends or something, Dorian laughed aloud. No. We're not. Not that that would be a bad thing or anything. He'd never be my friend. We're just not compatible, you know? Plus, he's always so fucking right, Abo. Chapter 5, Stutter. Corey could feel the other boy's presence beside him, and it was strangely unnerving. Dorian's breath, his chest rising and falling, his pen tapping against the table distractedly, his eyes scanning the classroom in boredom. He wasn't a shadow or fictitious entity. He was a person, his head full of thoughts, just like Corey's. Nothing was different about them, other than the fact that Dorian Price was Dorian Price. But that was a big difference. So, I'll give each pair their own title to ensure you don't all copy each other. Miss Afar continued explaining. By the end of the week, each group will be expected to have a presentation prepared, backed up with a PowerPoint and a sheet of all the relevant quotations from the play. Dorian and Corey both stiffened, knowing they would have spent even more time than was necessary in each other's company. It's not that either particularly hated the other, but there was friction between their personalities. They didn't click, they didn't work. Corey Winters and Dorian Price. Even their names didn't sound right together. Corey and Dorian, your topic is the incompatibility of military heroism and love. Write that down. Dorian jotted it down, but Corey didn't need to. He'd remember. So, when can we work on this? Dorian asked, smiling kindly. Tomorrow? Corey suggested. Can't. I've got rugby tomorrow. What about tonight? Sure. He shrugged. Can we go to yours? Corey tensed up and shook his head. He wouldn't even let Velvet come over. She just turned up unannounced whenever she felt like it. There was no way he was going to carve Dorian a private window into his life. No, my dad will be home. He blurted out without thinking. Fuck. Why had he said that? Is that a problem? Dorian pressed in concern, his suspicions rising. Could the reason behind Corey's mysterious secrecy and inability to smile be his father? His home life? And no, Corey stuttered. He stuttered, Dorian noted. Why had he stuttered? It's just that, could we not go to yours instead? Now it was Dorian's turn to hesitate. He didn't like having people over. No one but Ty was allowed into his personal life so intimately. His father had left when he was 3 months old and his mother wasn't a mother. She was hardly a person. She didn't live, she barely even survived. She just existed. I don't know. Dorian gulped. Please. Corey pressed gently. It was the first time Dorian had heard such tender, unfiltered emotion in his words. And it was the first time he'd ever reached out, actually asked for something from Dorian. Okay, he sighed, giving in. Meet me by the front gate at 4. Corey was late. It was almost 4:10 and Dorian was still waiting. The school had almost emptied, the car park looking more deserted than he'd ever seen it. He wondered if the boy had stood him up, decided that going to Dorian's house was a step too far. But just as he was about to give up and leave without him, Corey appeared from the front door of the building, approaching Dorian with his eyes cast to the floor. He was in tattered faded jeans, rips tearing into the knees, and scuffed leather boots. His usual baggy gray jumper was falling off his small frame and a beanie was pulled almost down to his eyes, his blonde curls poking out. Dorian, on the other hand, was wearing black jeans and an overworn leather jacket, covered in pins and badges he'd been collecting for years now. Where were you? Dorian asked curiously, the smile remaining on his face, telling Corey he wasn't angry. Mr. Kelly wanted to speak to me. About? Poetry. I love how specific you are sometimes, Dorian teased. He wanted to enter me in a competition. Corey explained further as Dorian began leading. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Corey brushed it off, refusing to answer his question. How long is it to?